I wish people would see them as like these little people that they are. They're coming into their skin. They're learning how to interact with teachers and their peers, and they don't really know how to navigate some of those things. And so having someone that can come alongside them and help guide them through that, because a lot of times in this age group, they've already formulated how they view the world.
Welcome to the BJU Press Teacher Edition podcast, where Christian educators are encouraged and inspired as we bring you interviews, practical ideas, strategies, and answer your questions about teaching in today's culture. And here's your host, Jenny Copeland.
Middle schoolers, we have all heard the pokes at this dear group of students, yet we have all walked through that phase of life ourselves. It could really be an awkward time. I mean, the list of crazy things that middle schoolers do, say, and think is unending. But all in all, they are really a great group to work with. It's a great age. It isn't for everyone, I get it. But if you roll with their quirkiness and you learn when to laugh and when to confront, it can really be a great age to teach. So I taught 6th grade and I loved that age. They were still young enough to not have all the attitude and they still enjoyed those simpler things, yet they were old enough to reason and discuss. They're just so impressionable. There is much to learn from this group, but you don't have to just believe me. We're going to talk middle schoolers today, and I'm really excited for you to meet our guest for today. But first, let me welcome everyone who's joining us. Thank you for making the Teacher Edition podcast part of your day. As we get started, just a quick reminder to take a minute to subscribe to the podcast. This will keep you notified when a new episode drops in so you won't miss a single one. If you're enjoying the Teacher Edition podcast, we'd also greatly appreciate it if you would just take a minute to leave us a positive rating. That really does help others find our show as well. By the way, if you have friends who aren't listening in, please share this podcast with them. And don't forget to go follow us on social media. Once again, we're Teacher Edition Podcast on Facebook. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok at Teacher Edition Pod. If you haven't visited our website, go take a look. It's teachereditionpodcast.com. While you're there, leave us a question. We really enjoy including those on the show. And lastly, don't forget to go find us on YouTube. We're Teacher Edition Podcast. There you can enjoy watching these episodes as well. Okay. Let's talk middle schoolers. So joining us today is Courtney Wallace. I first met Courtney when she was serving as part of our student staff who assisted with our after-school care and helped as teacher's aides. So Courtney always did a great job. She did so great with the students. She was upbeat and organized. She did a great job in those positions. Courtney earned a bachelor's degree in middle school education. Imagine that. And she's currently teaching 7th and 8th grade in Muncie, Indiana. She loves working with middle schoolers. So, Courtney, I am so excited to talk middle schoolers with you today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I love the opportunity to be here.
Okay, so let's start with a little bit more about you. Share with us how you came to be a middle school teacher. What made you want to work with middle school students?
Well, it's kind of an interesting story. I actually graduated from Bob Jones University with my first degree in 2019. I had majored in cross-cultural service, which is a missions degree at Bob Jones. And I thought that's where the Lord would have me to go. And I was kind of wondering what my next steps would be after graduation. I didn't really have any plans, no solid plans anyway. And a couple of my friends had started a master's in counseling at Bob Jones. And so I thought maybe I'll go that route. And so like I said, I graduated in 2019. Well, I got partway through my master's degree and then everything shut down because of COVID. And
COVID.
During my time as I was working on my master's degree, I was looking for a GA-ship. And because of my background at the elementary school with you, that led me to a GA-ship with the middle school on campus as the extended care kind of coordinator. And I helped in the office a lot too. And while I was there for my job, I actually just loved the environment, and I fell in love with the kids that I was working with, and just everything about the middle school environment. And it really changed the way I was thinking of what my future would look like. And so then we all went home for because of COVID. And then
Yes. We'll never
and then
forget that.
it made me reevaluate what I wanted to do in the future, which was
Yeah.
kind of a blessing in disguise in a ways, because it was the Lord actually allowed me to actually think about what I was doing and what I really wanted to do and what He would have me to do and how I could use my degree with cross-cultural service in a middle school classroom and make that middle school classroom my mission field. And that's kind of the take that I am taking now. And it was, just a weird series of circumstances, but it's crazy the way the Lord uses even like the most negative things, the most terrible things for His good and His glory.
It is amazing how going through COVID, it was terrible. It was horrible. I was a principal during that time.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
yes, that was quite the time. But it is amazing now on the other side how we're finding all these things that the Lord did through that and how the Lord used that. And yet another story of how God used COVID to give you direction. Okay, so let's talk about your classroom environment. So that can be a little tricky with middle schoolers. There's often a lot of emotion and drama and just uniqueness that goes on when you have a large group of middle schoolers together.
Right.
Okay, so what do you do, Courtney, to build a positive classroom environment? What do you do?
Well, I like to do things a little bit differently. I have a setup in my classroom that is kind of low lighting. I don't really use the fluorescent lighting at all. I use lamps. Teachers have donated lamps to me, and I have LED lights around my classroom too, just to kind of give it the atmosphere of like
Nice.
a calming type of presence,
Yes.
because it's really seventh and eighth grade is really a transition from like elementary into high school.
Oh, yes.
So I like it to be like a little bit softer of a transition for them. So it's not like, oh, one day they're in elementary school and the next day they're in high school.
Right.
So I want them to have like to be calm and and I'm the seventh grade homeroom teacher too. So that helps too. And that way they come into my classroom first thing in the morning and they can just like take a breath, be in a kind of relaxing environment. And then we go on from there. And when they do like independent work, they are sitting in groups. And so they can ask questions. I encourage them to work together and ask their friends questions, because a lot of times, sometimes one kid will get it, but the next one won't. And I try and encourage them and say, hey, if you have a question, 9 times out of 10, someone else in the room also has a question. And they have this, the self-image that they deal with a lot. They don't want to be the one who speaks out because they don't want their friends to feel like they don't know anything or they're stupid or dumb or anything like that. So I try and encourage them and say, hey, you have a question. Probably someone else in the room has the same question or a similar question. And you're not only helping yourself understand, you're also helping the entire class.
That's great. I love just those simple, very doable things. Setting up your environment to just be calm and comfortable. And I love even putting them in groups where, they're dying to communicate. They're dying to talk to their friends.
Yep.
And yet this is a stage where they're getting a little more independence. They're getting
Mhm.
a little bit, the rules aren't, we're not going to walk in straight lines as much anymore, right?
Right.
So that kind of gives them a nice middle of the road. And then using that, I love how you took it a step further and letting them ask their friends, getting clarification, because we all know they listen to us, but they do learn sometimes from their friends even better when their friends, of course, explain it correctly.
Right.
But
Right.
just
Yeah.
hearing it in that speak. Yeah, I love how you walked through just some really basic things you could do. Okay, so often one of the poke points, I guess if we could call it, with middle schoolers is their relationships. There's typically a good dose of awkwardness there, and things seem to change frequently in their friendships. But what about from the teacher side? Share your thoughts on the importance of building strong relationships, of course, appropriate relationships with students. How do you go about that at this age? What are your strategies?
Well, a lot of the times, like on the first day of class, it's just, get to know your students. I give them a 3x5 card and ask them like 5 questions, like when's your birthday? What's your favorite color? What's your favorite candy? Things like that. And then
Happy
I
to tell
ask
that.
them, yeah. And then I ask them what kind of extracurriculars they do. So whether it's in the school or outside of the school, I actually have a student who's involved in like dirt bike racing. And so,
Wow.
yeah, yeah, it was surprising to me because the student, I would not picture them as a dirt bike racer, but she's very excited and she is very into dirt bike racing, and just using that information that they give you and say, oh, okay, let's talk to them about it, starting conversations about it. Like, she has races on the weekends a lot of times. So I'm like, oh, how did that race go last weekend? And she'll tell me, and she typically does very well. And so she likes to talk about it. And so I tell them it can be like associated with the school or something like that, something totally unrelated to school. Of course, I want to know if they are involved in the sports programs, and it helps that I like to go to sports events, but I also like to go and show them that, hey, I'm supporting you outside of the classroom, our relationship is just not academic. I want to see you succeed outside of the classroom as well as inside of the classroom.
I love that. I love you talk about getting involved in their life. It is an awkward stage. And I guess you have to say, as a teacher, if you're not comfortable in your own skin, it can be hard to do that because they're at that phase. They're not like elementary who's going to wave to you if you're sitting in the stands.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're past that.
Yeah.
But boy, do they love it that you show interest in their lives. They just don't let you know that. I remember when I taught 6th grade, so like you have a dirt bike racer. I actually had a rodeo star.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, oh, really? Okay. And tell me more about this. Now, every Friday, he would leave with his horses to go off to the rodeo for the weekend. And he actually even invited our family out to his farm. It was funny. When they gave us directions, he said, go here, go there. When you come over the hill, you'll see the house on the barn. And as we were driving, I read that. I thought, oh, he didn't read what he wrote. This doesn't make sense. I wonder how we're going to find it. And when we rounded the corner, the house was on the barn.
Oh, my goodness.
I mean, it definitely was their life. There were all his horses. And we watched him rope. He was amazing. He and his dad were a team, and he did a great job. And he was one of those that didn't say a lot about my interest in it, but if I didn't show interest, I was like, well, I need to tell her because he knew that I was interested in that. So I love that you point that out because it is so important at that point in their life. They're beyond the little toys and trinkets and things like that. And you hit the nail on the head with just showing them how much you're interested in their life, even if it might seem mundane or trite or whatever. Being interested in what they are is just so important. Okay, so I already mentioned it's no secret that middle schoolers can easily be the brunt of some poking. So whether earned or unearned, we know how that goes. If we did an episode of middle school stories, it would probably be on the greatest hits list immediately. So no day is alike. Yeah. And you just never know what might happen with them. All that aside, and underneath that all, they really are a great group of students. And I know you feel the same way. So as we wrap up this episode, what do you wish more people understood about this group of people? What do you wish they understood about teaching middle school students?
I wish people would see them as like these little people that they are. They're coming into their skin. They're learning how to interact with teachers and their peers, and they don't really know how to navigate some of those things. And so having someone that can come alongside them and help guide them through that. And because a lot of times in this age group, they've already formulated how they view the world. I think my dad is one of the principals here, and he's big into biblical worldview shaping and things like that.
Us
and
too.
He was giving me a statistic. He said by the age of 13, most kids already have a worldview already assigned to them, and there's not much you can do to change it. But you can help them guide through some of the things that they face in middle school through the worldview that they've already set up, and just showing them that you can view the world a certain way, but also honor and glorify God in everything that you do. You can do things outside of school, like dirt bike racing, and do that for His honor and glory. And what does that look like? And just that kind of thing. Just they're so like, I can't even put it into words. They're very, very moldable in some ways, and you have to come alongside them and help them as much as you can in the best way that you can.
Yeah. And I'm glad you pointed out about the worldview. We do talk about that a lot on this show. And we've talked about several times the fact that by 13, they really have set that worldview. That doesn't mean it can't change. That doesn't mean we can't bend that. Like you said, you keep speaking into it and speaking into it. But even with the worldview that, they've been guided into with their parents and school and church and all that, we're constantly speaking into that and holding that against, that lens to Scripture. Okay, seeing this through biblically, through our biblical lenses, if you want to put it that way, as we often liken it to that. So I'm glad you pointed that out, and just constantly coming alongside them and helping shape their thinking. Yes, they may have a biblical worldview. They may have a worldview set by that point, but constantly speaking into that. And I think that's a great admonition. Courtney, this has been short, but it's been fun and it's been encouraging. And I really appreciate you sharing your experiences with us and encouraging all of us as we minister to middle schoolers, some on a daily basis and some as we just interact with them. God definitely has given you a burden and a gift for working with them. And it's really been great having you here for this little time today to share with us just your experiences and your burden for those students. So thanks for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a blast.
Listeners, thank you for joining us today. I hope you were challenged and encouraged as I was. Remember to go to teachereditionpodcast.com to learn more about the show and to submit questions for upcoming episodes. Of course, be sure to subscribe to the podcast and follow us on social media. Now, it's time to get back to your day, but it's not just any day, because every day in your classroom is your day to impact and inspire through God's power and through His grace working in you. Now go do what God has called you to do.